ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Local then, local now. Member FDIC.
It is Thursday, June 18th. The Drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. You can join the program by calling the Miller Lite phone lines at 877-420-TALK. That is 877-420-8255. Miller Lite Hold 2. Great taste. Only 96 calories. It is the original light beer. Coming up on the program, we've been talking about the basketball tournament for the past few days. Of course, the Mountain State has an interesting matchup to root for. Marshall alum versus West Virginia alum, and we've talked to several on the herd that entry. We're going to talk to one of the key components of Best Virginia. We got a tie-in. Best Virginia, the 10 seed in this basketball tournament, and Jarrod West Sr., the father of Marshall standout Jarrod West, one of the coaches of this team. And so we're going to talk to him. We're going to find out what Jarrod West Jr. has been saying, what secrets he might have been spilling. We're going to find out all of that. And, of course, we're going to break this one down a little bit more because one of the reasons why West Virginia was awarded a tournament site before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, because the fan interest, not only, of course, you got Best Virginia, Marshall entry as well, just the fact that people were excited about this from the Mountain State, and West Virginia has a really solid entry. I mean, they got one of the best teams in the tournament. They're a 10 seed. And not everybody got in this tournament that wanted to get in. And West Virginia has two teams in, and obviously it's going to make for some interesting talk these last few days and leading up to the tournament. It's going to make for some interesting talk. And I'm excited. We've got basketball coming back. And this is a really competitive tournament. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to talk to Jarrod West Sr. later on in the program. We've got some things to get into, so we're going to do that. I think the biggest thing we want to get into later on in the program is just how the Division I Council's plan for practice is going to break down. And still, there are so many unknowns. You've got Dr. Fauci coming out today, even saying that doesn't see how football really is going to be played. The NFL coming back and says, you know what, you're right, we take the challenge. We accept the challenge. Sort of my take on that. Still don't know what's going to happen, but we're still planning as if football is going to happen. Basketball, at least on the college level, is going to be starting up soon. The Division I Council approved a plan there. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I don't have any specifics yet from Marshall. As soon as I do, we'll try to have either Coach D'Antoni on or Tony Kemper or both. We'll try to get those guys on to talk a little bit more about what this means for them as we progress and get closer and closer to hopefully resumption of play, if it's safe. But right now, football is going through the motions as if we've got a target date. Things are going to happen. We're going to try to make it happen. We're going to try to get to that point. And, of course, thankfully for football season, that means things are happening. And today, we find out that we have lost the Belk Bowl. I really want to lead with this. The Belk Bowl is gone as a name. So the Charlotte Sports Foundation has entered into a multi-year partnership with Duke's Mayonnaise. And so they've got an early season college football game and a postseason bowl game. Duke's takes over as the title sponsor for the bowl that has been known as the Belk Bowl since 2011. And the game itself is going to be known as the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So we've got the Mayo Bowl. Interesting enough, I'm not surprised by this because years and years ago, these bowl games were named after industries that were trying to get more promotion. Why do you think they called it the Orange Bowl? Because trying to promote the orange industry. The Cotton Bowl, trying to promote the cotton industry. The Rose Bowl, of course, is the granddaddy of them all. Tournament of Roses parade. I mean, that's just college football and through and through. But now we're getting back to maybe some regional sponsors. Duke's Mayo Bowl, they're going to get a lot of pop out of this. And, of course, the game is in Charlotte, so Duke's Mayo, that's a big brand in Charlotte, right? I don't know if it's the brand we all go to. I'm not sure. If I go to anywhere in Charlotte and I have a sandwich or something with mayo in it, I definitely don't know if I'm going to get some Duke's mayonnaise with that. However, they're hoping that this is going to help, of course, elevate their name. And for a while, I didn't know what Bad Boy Motors or whatever it was. I had to think about that first. Like, Bad Boy Motors, mowers, what is this? And now I know what that is. I know that brand. And so having the bowl named after something helps. It does help. Sometimes, of course, though, the brands can't afford to keep that up, or brands go away. Maybe the bowl didn't help. But I'm pretty sure that here, from years from now, no matter what happens with the game, we're still going to need mayonnaise. And Duke's mayonnaise, that should sort of be an automatic qualifying game for Duke. That should be a game where if Duke is bowl eligible, they automatically get a bid in the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. Makes sense to me. I think so. Automatic bid. If you get 6 wins, Duke, you get to go to the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl every year. That's how I would do it completely. All right, we're going to take your phone calls at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. That's your number to be a part of the program. Later on, we're going to hear from Jarrod West Sr. We're going to talk about the basketball tournament, and we're going to run down what's happening in college football and basketball with these guidelines as we get closer to actual maybe a line, a determination if the schedule is going to go off on time, if it's going to be pushed back, if it's going to be canceled. I don't envision it being canceled. They're playing football. I just don't know how and when. Probably on time. How? That's going to be another question. I mean, we're going to have like stormtrooper masks. We're going to have face shields. What are we going to do here? Because football, of course, one of the sports where there's going to be a lot of contact. And so we'll figure all of this out together. But later on, Jarrod West Sr. joins us on the program. It's The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Still to come, we're going to talk basketball tournament. West Virginia's alumni entry. Best Virginia will face off against Marshall's alumni team. I've heard that, and we'll speak to Jarrod West Sr., father of Jarrod West on the Marshall basketball team. And we've talked to Jarrod in the past. We know where his loyalties lie. When it comes to this tournament, he's going with family. Blood thicker than water when it comes to Jarrod. We'll find out, though, how thick that blood really is. I'm probably going to get Jarrod in a little trouble here just because he's probably thinking, oh, man, what are you going to ask my dad? Did we tweet this out? Did we let him know? Did we give him the heads up that we had his dad on the show? Okay. All right, we're going to find out. We're going to find out if he's tuned into the program. So Jarrod West Sr. joins us on the program a little bit later on. And, I mean, maybe we should, after the interview, say, hey, here's what your dad said. Here's what your dad said. It's exciting, though. The tournament itself, it's really exciting. The fact that it's going to be interesting for several reasons. You've got the West Virginia entry, the Marshall entry. The winner will get to take on the money team. I would like to see these teams in different brackets, different angles of this. Maybe had 2 teams from West Virginia. I mean, to extend this a little further, but it definitely generates a lot of interest and conversation as we get closer and closer to the start of this tournament. Of course, the thing that we're also most concerned with right now is the start of football and basketball, at least on the college level. Now, the Division I Council, this is basketball I want to talk about first. The Division I Council, they approved the plan for men's and women's basketball summer activities. It's going to be the same for both men and women. So there's no change there. We're going to do something differently on the men's side and the women's side. It's going to be uniform. What's going to happen is they're going to allow voluntary athletics activities and up to 8 hours of virtual non-physical activities through July 19th. The council is going to discuss whether additional activities should be allowed in that period. They're going to get together, and they're doing this all virtually. Beginning July 20th, Required summer activities may begin and can last up to 8 weeks or until the school's first day of classes or September 15th, whichever is earlier. And required virtual non-physical activities can continue to be conducted during the period. Virtual and in-person activities cannot exceed a combined 8 hours per week. And as soon as a plan is formulated or a plan is revealed, as far as what happens with Marshall, as I mentioned, we'll try to get either or both Coach D'Antoni and Coach Kemper on to talk about this. But Marshall has been smart about, we're going to bring football back first. We're going to ease into this. We're going to do this in stages. And so far, whatever Marshall's doing, whatever the Marshall football team, whatever their guidelines are, it seems to be holding and working. And we've got, of course, those positive tests that came in before the start of this period. And that was to be expected. You didn't want it to happen, but it was to be expected. And so you caught those. And now you look at other schools like Texas, for example. And Texas is having a hard time of it because they have multiple cases. In Houston, lots of cases there. And this is going to throw the timetable off for a lot of schools, a lot of leagues, because it's obvious some schools are moving at a different pace than others. And now schools are asking, if you want to do this, you're going to have to sign a pledge. I mean, that's popping up more and more. I don't know what that's going to look like across the country, but there are several schools that are asking athletes, you're going to sign a pledge. This is what you're going to pledge to do. But you're going to have to. You're going to have to figure out a way to minimize this because you're seeing positive tests pop up across the college football landscape. And so you were expecting this, but were you expecting this at this level? And unfortunately for some schools, unfortunately at some schools, it's been a little bit more of a disaster than others from the standpoint that more athletes have been testing positive than others. More schools have been maybe surprised, okay, whoa, it's a higher number than that. Unfortunately, for a lot of schools, this is sort of a wake-up call. But like I said, you've got the University of Houston. They paused their workouts. You've got some other schools that are pausing or at least trying to reorganize what they're doing because you've got positive tests and you're having difficulty in really getting this going because you've got to quarantine kids. You've got to isolate them. You've got to separate them from the crowd. You have to make sure that they're not a part of the population. And then I don't know what the results are going to be here over the next few weeks, but you've got people coming back from, say, Myrtle Beach, for example. Myrtle Beach has become a hot spot. Now, I actually looked at my intern today and said, if you're hanging out with anybody that's near this, you're going to be wearing that mask the entire time. And of course, again, it's because you're trying to eliminate your exposure to people, if you're a student athlete, you're definitely going to lock yourself down because this could be make or break as far as your opportunity to play. And keep that in mind. If more student athletes test positive and then this is going to set things back, you're not going to get maybe the workouts you need. And at the same time, if you've got multiple cases, that's going to give people reason for pause. And what's this going to look like come late August, come September, come October? What's the schedule going to look like? And of course, as I've told a few people, until further notice, Marshall's playing football. Until further notice. Until something comes down that says, no, not happening, or this is going to be a reduced schedule, or it's going to be a shifted schedule. Because you can't depend on just what you're doing. You're going to have to depend on the other schools as well. And that's the big concern. Will other schools be on the same page, on the same level, say, as Marshall? If Marshall does everything right and Marshall has clean bill of health and Marshall has done everything and can play football, what about the opponent? Have those kids gone through the same type of protocols? Have those kids been doing the same things? Is the virus a little bit more of an issue where those schools are located? You have new cases popped up. I mean, this is going to be so interesting. So when I was reading Dr. Fauci's comments about, you might have to put these kids in bubbles. And that's going to be interesting. How do you put student athletes in bubbles? You're going to have to put them in bubbles. And of course, they're student athletes. This isn't professional sports we're talking here, where NBA players, if they eventually figure out that they want to do this and they sign up for it, agree to quarantine themselves and put themselves in a bubble, isolated from everyone else except the participants of this venture. I mean, same thing. We're talking about the basketball tournament, and we'll talk to Jarrod West Sr. here in a few minutes. Same thing with this tournament. You're going to self-isolate. You're going to have to quarantine. You're going to be tested multiple times. And the reason being is because one positive test and your team's out. Not you're going to isolate that player. Is if someone on your team, if your team has one positive, you're gone. You're out of the tournament. They have backup teams that are ready to take your place. And so they're taking it seriously. They're asking these participants to practice this. I don't know how you're going to put NFL players in bubbles. The NBA, you're playing at one location, so you can bubble a little bit more. How do you do that with football? How do you isolate and then travel? Because you're not playing football at one location. Same thing with college football. You're not playing in hubs. There's no college football hub that has been developed for college football teams to play. And that's not going to happen. College football relies on home games with opponents. Fans might not be a part of the equation. Fans might be a part of the equation. What number of fans will be allowed? What percentage will be allowed in? And that's where we're at right now. At the same time, though, you've got to prepare as if we're going to have a season. And we're going to see basketball ramp up. And basketball is going to be interesting as well because we've seen the results of testing come back and we've seen football players. Now, football, you've got greater number of student athletes to worry about, to contend with. But at the same time, basketball, you've got a smaller group of athletes, and it's going to be more detrimental. If you have 2 or 3 players on your basketball roster that test positive, I mean, that's a little bit more detrimental than maybe 2 or 3 Marshall football players because you can compensate and overcome that. You have the numbers. You still might be a little shorthanded, but you have the numbers, whereas in basketball, that's going to be the interesting situation. If players come back and you find out that maybe they were either exposed without knowing it, careless, out at the beach, having a good time before they get back into the swing of things here, come back, they've got, unknown to them, they've gotten themselves exposed, and all of a sudden, they're going to have to isolate if they want to participate, and they're going to have to go on lockdown. And that's the thing. You're going to have to figure out how do you do this, and then how do you replicate this? Because it's not just you keeping your student athletes safe. You're trying to make sure that the opponent, the other team, has been doing the same thing, keeping their student athletes safe. And I'm sure there's a lot of phone calls going on back and forth, and there will be, I'm sure, continuously as schedules have to be adjusted, or if there's going to be any delay, or if everybody's comfortable and confident that they can pull this off and not have any repercussions. I don't think intentionally universities are going to put their kids in harm's way. I don't think intentionally. I don't think there's any, okay, we're going to play no matter what. We're just going to go out there and risk it. I think these kids are going to have to go out there and they're going to have to play if NCAA and if the university think that they're okay and they're going to do that. But we're definitely going to break this down a little bit more because the NCAA Council approved a 6-week practice plan for football. We're going to break that down later on in the program, but we're going to turn our attention back to the basketball tournament itself. And Jarrod West Sr. joins us on the program when we continue with today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Thursday, June 18th edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930, presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. If you miss any part of today's program, don't forget you can always catch it on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. And if you do subscribe, make sure you do subscribe. It'll come to your phone or your device automatically. And do me a favor, leave me a 5-star review. I would appreciate it when you do subscribe. It's on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Still to come here in the next couple of minutes, we're going to hear from the coach of Marshall alumni team, Heard That's opponent, West Virginia alumni team, Best Virginia. So Jarrod West Sr. will be joining us on the program here in a few moments, and we'll be breaking down the basketball tournament. So that is coming up. And, of course, we'll get your phone calls in as well at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Football, of course, progressing as well in college athletics, and the NCAA Division I Council yesterday approving a 6-week practice plan for football. That's going to begin in July, and it's going to transition teams from the voluntary workouts to typical mandatory meetings and preseason camps to get them ready for the 2020 season. The NCAA also waiving the preseason limit of 110 athletes. And this news coming, of course, from, and you've got West Virginia Athletic Director Shane Lyons, who is the chair of the NCAA Football Oversight Committee. And he's overseeing this right now, and he said that it will be left to the discretion of each institution how many athletes it has at camp. So if you've got more than 110, you want to bring them all in. If you think you can handle it and manage it, that will be where we're at with the add-ons. And, of course, most football teams, if you do the math, walk-ons, looking at maybe 120, 130. Some schools could have 130. Some schools could have less. Some schools could have maybe 115, 120. You see my point here. The numbers will fluctuate a little bit, but during the preseason, you can have only 110 players return to camp. So the numbers have been allowed to be inflated a little bit because you're just trying to get ready. You're trying to get prepared for this. And the NCAA also waived the rule that any additional athletes who return to campus for summer conditioning, walkthroughs and meetings didn't have to go home again. So there's no, okay, we brought you, now you got to go back. And, so you are in a situation where you're going to be under the guidance, under the watch, under the care of the athletic department. You don't want that. You don't want to release players, release student athletes, and then have them come back because bad things could happen. Case in point, we find out today, and this is from the Cabell Huntington Health Department, that 5 cases of COVID-19 in Cabell County are linked to travel to the Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina. So that is according to their contact tracing. They're doing some interviews, and they are, of course, as they have been advising isolation and quarantine procedures to those individuals that have tested positive. And you're hoping that it's not you that's talked to some of those people who have been in touch with some of those people. And you're hoping that your football team hasn't been in contact with somebody returning from Myrtle Beach. So that's where you're at right now. You're trying to limit that. And so that's why you have this waiver of the rule, because you don't want to release these kids and then they're going to have to re-quarantine and they're going to have to lock down and then you can come back and be tested all over again. So we have been talking about the basketball tournament for several days, and we had John Elmore on a few days ago, Ryan Taylor. We basically have been enjoying the early hype for this. It feels like March Madness with the bracket and everything. And we've got, of course, our connections. We've talked to Jarrod West Jr. on many occasions on the program, and he's indicated that he's taken family over brothers, or at least that was the impression last time. And I'm sure that's news. It's good news to the ears of Jarrod West Sr., who joins us now on the program. Going to be the coach once again of Best Virginia. And Coach, thanks for joining us. I really do appreciate it. And we're kind of excited for this matchup.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody in the country is. And definitely in the great state of West Virginia, just to see some basketball in the first place, and then obviously with the WVU Marshall rivalry. So it should be I wish the crowd was allowed because it would be a great atmosphere, but we know everybody will be cheering at home.
Now, I've given your son a little light ribbing now and then, and he pretty much said that, okay, when it came right down to it, he's taking you over a guy like John Elmore just because family. I mean, that's probably the right answer for him.
He has to be politically correct, but always blood is a little thicker than water. But either way, it's a win-win for him. If they win, he's got a little bragging rights with his boys, and then obviously if Dad wins, if I win a little money, I might be able to put a little more in the bank account for him. So but definitely it'll be a fun game for him because he knows everybody on both teams. So it'll be a great game for him to watch and enjoy.
Does he stay neutral, or do you lean on him a little bit and go, okay, tell me a little bit more about this Elmore guy? What's his tendencies? Are you using him as a tool, or is he staying out of this?
Well, to be honest with you, we are a basketball family. So before Jarrod even came to Marshall, that's just what we do. We watch people, we analyze people, we break people down. So he didn't have to tell me much because obviously I've seen John, Stevie, Rondell, all those guys, CJ, Mick Ryan. So, but if I were to ask him, he would definitely let me know. He's definitely a future head coach in the making. So we're always down to talk a little basketball.
Well, I did hear from John Elmore when we talked to him that they've changed their play calls and they're locking your son out. He's not going to be anywhere near them. They're locking him out.
That's funny because they just they were working out together probably 3 weeks ago. He went back to Huntington for a little bit, and they did a lot of sand workouts. So, and then to get the seating, and we're playing them. So that's very ironic. Probably a little bit of good fortune. I think they kind of planned that so they can create some stories for the event. But all in all, it'll be a fun game. I told the guys at practice yesterday, if we don't come to play, we easily could be one and done because I know those guys, John, CJ, those guys are going to play with a lot of heart, a lot of pride, and this gives them another opportunity to represent Marshall. So I know they'll be excited and ready to go.
Notre Dame boys basketball coach Jarrod West, also the coach of Best Virginia, joining us on the program. When you saw that pairing, were you excited, happy? Oh no, here we go again. What was your thoughts on that?
To be honest with you, the competitive side in me, I wouldn't have cared if it was my mom and dad who we were playing. When the ball goes up, and especially we're trying to win $1 million, so obviously it's close to home being WVU Marshall, but it's my responsibility just to get these guys prepared. To win one game at a time, and hopefully we can. If we win 5, we'll win it all. So I know the state is, it's a lot of the rivalry game and all that, but from a coach's perspective, I could care less who we're playing. I'm just trying to get film and, like I said, show guys tendencies and scouting reports so they'll be prepared to play.
How tough is it going to be for you? Because the basketball tournament has been very player safety conscious. You're going to have to go in lockdown. There's going to be lots of testing, isolation. This is a major commitment. How tough is that going to be for you and your team?
I think that's a great question. And I think out of 24 teams, it's going to be interesting to see how many teams, self-hurt themselves maybe not following instructions, doing what they're supposed to do. That's going to be interesting. When you have grown men and professionals who are used to kind of being out and about, and now they have to quarantine and kind of follow some guidelines for everybody's safety, obviously. But that's going to be interesting to see who can handle the strict precautions that we have to abide by in the next 2 weeks. I've thought about that a lot, and that's the first time someone has asked me about it. I think that's going to play a very important role into who wins this.
Joining us on the program, Notre Dame boys basketball coach and head coach of Best Virginia, Jarrod West. Do you think it helps because Best Virginia has the unique situation? Not too many teams can, one, boast the talent you have. Two, the camaraderie, the closeness, the familiarity with each other. I'm pretty sure of all the groups, you have probably one of the best groups that can keep each other accountable. I mean, you all know each other. I mean, you're not putting guys together. I mean, there's a lot of continuity between top to bottom with this team.
I totally agree. And I told the guys yesterday, this tournament is a lot about chemistry, who likes each other, who vibes with each other, who knows the strengths and weaknesses. And all of these guys, one of the greatest things that Coach Huggins has done in building that practice facility is that he's really embraced the family, and he allows all these guys to come back in the off season and work out together. And I think that is going to be an advantage to us. Just like you said, the familiarity, the chemistry, because you're basically trying to do something that takes 3 months to get accomplished and do something in 2 weeks, to build chemistry, to understand strengths and weaknesses, and those guys already have it. So hopefully we can use that to our advantage, and take one step at a time and advance throughout the tournament.
You bring up Coach Huggins. You look at this team. This is a Bob Huggins all-star team and all effects. And if you play to your potential, I don't know if you look too far ahead at the teams that are ahead of you and how much scouting you can really do. But your style of play is going to be tough and difficult for anybody to face off against.
Yes, but from a coach perspective, I would be doing the Marshall team a discredit if I look to the next. Someone asked me yesterday. I don't know who we're in the second round because if we don't win the first game, we're going home. So we have to take one game at a time. That's one thing I've learned at an early age playing this game of basketball. You can never overlook anybody. So all of our time, energy, effort is focused on stopping Marshall, stopping John Elmore, and those guys, because they deserve all the attention right now. If for some reason we win that game, if you want to give me a call the night of that game, and then we can talk about whoever you want to talk about the next the next game. But right now we're focused on the Marshall team.
Well, I know your opponent. I won't go into that, but I'm rooting for you already. If it's your team that has to go off, face the next opponent, I've already picked. So I'll tell you that we might call you. we definitely might. It's the money team. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it's the money team. That's the team you're facing off against. If you win.
Well, if we win, you give me a call that night, and we can talk about the money team. We can talk about the money team. But like I said, right now we're focused on, Marshall, and because those guys get going and making threes, and Taylor's a matchup problem. We got our hands full, so we got to be prepared. We got to get in shape and be ready to go.
A little less X and O's, just more how fans have responded to not only this matchup, but just this tournament. It's one, we're getting basketball back. We're getting it at a high level. And It feels like maybe, and of course, Best Virginia has had a huge impact in this tournament already. The fact that Charleston was going to be a host site before the pandemic happened. What is it about basketball that West Virginians just love? Because I don't think you could see this. You wouldn't see a tournament like this here if it wasn't for the fact that the fan response has just been so huge, both for the West Virginia side and things, and the Marshall side.
I totally agree. I tell people a lot. My first few years at West Virginia weren't the best, but I fell in love with the fans, and I was the crowd favorite. And so my junior and senior, when I played a lot more, it's intoxicating, the energy and the vibe that they give you. So, and now that I've been to Huntington the last 3 years watching Jarrod and John play, the crowd and the Cam, when that crowd gets going, so West Virginia doesn't have any professional teams, so they live and die, especially with WVU, but at Marshall as well. And the crowd we had in Virginia last year, if I've said this before, if Juwan Staten doesn't sprain his wrist the game before, I think there would have been a very different outcome for us in the tournament last year, because we had opportunities to win that game without our point guard. And because of the fans, it was basically a home game for us. And to the credit of the fans, that the committee of the TBT saw that, and they wanted the benefit of it. That's why we were able to host. We were going to host in Charleston. Hopefully, we have a good showing this year, and next year, once things settle down, hopefully we'll have a chance to host in Charleston again, because our fans deserve it. The Huntington fans, the Morgantown fans, the state of West Virginia in general, they love their basketball, they love their sports, and that's the credit to those guys.
Notre Dame boys basketball coach and head coach of Best Virginia, Jarrod West, joining us on the program. And that's going to be a challenge for you. That's going to be a challenge for anyone in this tournament. The atmosphere, the crowd, West Virginia fans really fuel those guys, those players. They feed off that energy. You're not going to have that energy, so how are you going to overcome or at least deal with that? Everyone's got to deal with it, but how are you attacking it?
Well, to be honest with you, that it's going to be. I don't think anybody really can say that. I don't think it's ever been done. You've had scrimmages before, but the stakes aren't as high. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how awkward it's going to be, because it's going to be so quiet. But we're going to have to. The good thing is, on the flip side of it, these aren't high school kids that you have to. You got to motivate. You got to do everything to get them going. These are professionals, so they understand the stakes. They understand the $1 million stakes. They understand that we have to self-motivate and get ourselves juiced up on our own. Which I think, with our team and camaraderie, I think that's going to be to one of our advantages, because all of these guys genuinely love each other and root for each other. So I think we'll be able to create more energy for ourselves because of the familiarity.
My only question is there going to be enough basketball time for all these guys? I don't know who sits and who starts on this team.
Woo, that's $1 million question. Me and Coach Tallman, we get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. Now, on the flip side, the greatest thing about this group is they are so selfless and unselfish, and they just really genuinely want to win. And they've allowed me to coach them. They've allowed Coach Tallman to coach them. That is the great thing. They're not jerks. They don't have any egos. So that's the great thing. But we have a lot of versatility. We can start multiple people, but we just have to figure out who helps us at the right times and in the right places. Obviously, with Marshall, they're going to play a lot of guards, so we might have to match up small ball with them. And then, just depending on who we're playing or who's on the floor is going to dictate who's on the floor for us. So the good thing is we can go big, we can go small. We have great versatility.
All right, I'll give you a tip. You probably already know this, but Elmore, he's really good at passing, but he hasn't seen a shot he hasn't liked yet. He will, if he sees an open basket, he'll shoot.
Well, you definitely didn't have to tell me that one. I've been several games and I've seen John. He's a very electrifying player. He brings a lot of juice and energy to the floor, and if he gets it going, he's very streaky as well. So we definitely and not just John. I've seen Stevie get it going. I've seen CJ go for 30. Ryan Taylor's a matchup problem. So we got our hands full. But the good thing about the Best Virginia team, those guys, Hugs is built on defense. So it's going to be a battle of wills, and whoever executes the best is going to probably come out and win.
Coach, it's been a pleasure to have you on. We have your son on all the time, and now I know where he gets his personality from, because you two are now two of my favorite interviews that I've ever had.
That means a lot. I want to thank you for how you all have embraced him in Huntington. He said nothing but great things about you guys, and God is truly blessed. As God is good, because he's in a comfortable spot with you guys, and I'm excited to come down to the Cam this year and I think those guys are going to make a deep run next year with everybody coming back. So thank you. Anytime you want to call, you want me on, and I'm not after the game. If we win, feel free to give me a call, and we can talk about whoever we'll be playing in the next round.
Okay, we'll do it. Coach, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Have a good one, buddy.
There you have it, Notre Dame boys basketball coach Jarrod West. He's part of the coaching staff of the basketball tournament entry from West Virginia's alumni team, Best Virginia. We wrap it up when we continue on today's edition of The Drive.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You know, we've had, I think, an outstanding week of shows. That means no pressure, but Friday has got to be the cherry on top. Intern producer Spencer Dupuis, Friday has got to be good.
I'm brainstorming right now. I'm brainstorming. We can't use all the tournament guys.
No.
We got a couple weeks till that.
We're going to use that. Of course, we're going to use that strategically, but Friday we got to bring something to the table.
I'm trying.
Okay. I mean, you've been good 4 days straight here. I mean, it's solid. First 4 days of this week have been solid. What can you do on Friday to just accentuate it, the exclamation point to this show?
Just get another solid guest. But if you're a guest or if you're a listener, you got to stay tuned. You'll figure that out tomorrow on the social media, probably tomorrow afternoon.
Look at that. Not only is he teasing the show, he's telling you better follow the social media channels. On Twitter, at Paul Swann. The radio station is ESPN 94.1. Of course, Facebook, that's our favorite destination at times. The Drive with Paul Swann. Find our page, like it there. And don't forget, always subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcaster or wherever you get your podcast. For our producer, Spencer Dupuis, I'm Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in. Back tomorrow for the Friday edition of The Drive here at ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.